This is the Grow Your Clinic podcast from Clinic Mastery. We help progressive health professionals to lead inspired teams, transform client experiences, and build clinics for good. Now, it's time to grow your clinic.
Hello, it's Cathy Love here, but I almost have a co-host today in this conversation. Welcome, Jack O'Brien.
Hey, Cathy, lovely to see you, and listeners, g'day to both on both of our audience podcasts.
Yeah, so we decided to have a conversation and a podcast, but what we didn't finalise was whose podcast we were each on. So Jack O'Brien is one of the founding directors of Clinic Mastery. And Jack, how about you introduce the other guys, even though they're not with us?
Yeah, they're absolutely the founding directors. So Shane Davis, Ben Lynch, and Daniel Gibbs. So it's the four amigos of us folk, and we've got a team of 14 or 15 other coaches, mentors, and allied health professionals.
Yeah. So some people will be listening to this conversation on the Private Practice Made Perfect side of things, yes, and then they'll be hearing it again. So aren't they lucky?
They are absolutely lucky. And for those that are tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast, Cathy, why don't you tell us about your role and who you are?
Yeah, we're going to have these questions bouncing over the fence the whole time. I'm enjoying it already. Okay. So I'm the founding director of Nacre Consulting, and many of you are probably almost parking the cars at this point thinking, well, why on earth are Jack and Cathy even in conversation? And we haven't spoken a lot and we don't know each other well. We're going to know each other a lot better in probably 45 minutes time. But my attitude is that, yes, we are both business coaches, and yes, we are both serving allied health business owners, but we're doing it differently, and we've got different products and programs and teams that are just right for some business owners and not right for others, and that's all part of it. And I'd much rather be able to pick up the phone to Jack or Gerda or any of the other guys. Joe Muirhead's been on, and I think it's important to have that connection there rather than any sort of tension or anything else.
Yeah, agreed. And likewise, we know that we can help a number of clinic owners, and there are a number of clinic owners that fit our sweet spot, but we also know there's plenty that the message may or may not resonate with. And at the end of the day, we both love clinic owners and want to see them thrive. And if there's a solution for those clinic owners, then we're going to point them in the right direction for them every time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not at all uncommon for me to be suggesting that someone I might be in conversation with go and have a look at your product or have a look at the other products on the market. Yeah, I don't pretend to be everything to everyone. And the fact that the whole allied health coaching industry is maturing and that there is more choice, I think it's great. I think it's great for all of us to kind of lift our game, but it's also great for choice, for business owners being able to compare and contrast and sit in the dark of night and make, significant decisions about who they're going to partner with.
And yeah, absolutely. And I think the reality is that allied health is so broad. The types of patients and clients that we're able to help in different settings and sectors and across the different professions themselves is so broad. And there is an element of business is business, regardless of profession or industry. But there are some subtle nuances across those different subsectors that are really important to acknowledge.
Yeah. So from a Clinic Mastery's point of view, who are your ideal clients?
It's a good question. So we love working with progressive health clinic owners, so ones that are really interested in tech and looking to push ahead and be ahead of the curve. They're often early adopters, and they love being on the cutting edge of what's new and what's hip and happening in the health clinic owner space. And we love working with clinic owners that want to grow their clinic, but predominantly through creating and transforming the experiences for their clients. So we're very experiential in how we help clinics to grow. It's essentially, in a nutshell, who we love to help. Who does Nacre love to help?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you started off with this piece around mindset and sort of growth mindset, bright, vibrant, future-focused kind of thinking. That is one of the, the features that I really look for and that I really enjoy coaching as well. We work with a lot of people who are running businesses and serving people with different abilities and disabilities. So a lot of our customers in all of our program levels are engaged with the NDIA and TAC and Lifetime Care and Support and a whole lot of sort of third-party funds. And yes, business is business and somewhat agnostic, but boy, oh boy, it's sort of when you're up against the edges of those schemes, there are some nuances, as you sort of said as well. We also love working with business owners who really want to shift from being clinician towards really being a lot more confident and capable in their management capability. Those that are really wanting to step forward to lead very inspired, dynamic teams, and those who realise that they're kind of okay with the discipline and the repetitive parts of reports and analysis and meetings, but really appreciate that when those systems do spin, that is somewhat their ticket to freedom, to claiming their time and money and joy on the back of those absent lunch breaks and long hours and weepy nights.
Yeah. And it's interesting you mentioned that. I think by nature of being in practice for a period of time, a lot of health professionals would say they're good at their craft. They're great technicians. They're good at being a health professional. But then learning that skill of, like you say, leading inspired teams, crafting systems, building a business is a totally different skill set. At least that's how we experience it. What do you see when you're working with clinic owners as some of the challenges with them, coming off the tools in inverted commas or transitioning to that entrepreneurial mindset?
I guess I can answer that in first flight with reflecting on what my experience was. Doesn't mean it was like everyone else's, but it seems to have been equally patchy. And that was that I sort of believed that I had a degree and that I was a clinician. I believed I was a good clinician.
Right.
And that meant that I should have been good enough to be able to run a business. And so I was always stretching these skills across literally into the boardroom at times. And I really felt that I should be able to do it. And I put a lot of expectations on my clinical skill set to get me going on the business side of things. Luckily, I engaged with mentors very, very early in my completely chaotic private practice startup phase. And I realized that, in fact, whilst my clinical skills were an awesome foundation, I had a ton of critical thinking and decision. I had a ton of good stuff to use. It actually was a different language and it was a different skill set. And that trajectory then through all sorts of courses I did decades ago really lit up the dark areas, but it also gave me visibility about what I had in my clinical toolkit that was portable to business. So for me, it was about expectations. I expected that I would be able to do it because I had a degree and I was pretty smart, but in fact, not so much. And I think that little kind of lighthearted story now, gosh, it hurt at the time, but I do see that a similar story kind of playing out with some of the conversations I have with business owners, the issue of expectation, uncertain how to ask for help, willingness to ask for help, and then even knowing where on earth to go to get help that won't be embarrassing or traumatic or too challenging for them.
I'm interested. Do you think that clinic owners need to go through that period of self-realization that, oh no, I'm in too deep, before they end up getting help? Or do you think it's beneficial?
Yeah, sort of drowning, not waving.
Yeah.
I think I'd like to answer that by saying they don't have to.
Right.
But they can actually circumvent it. The examples that I can put to that is that those amazing startups who just come to me 6 months before they open the doors and boom, absolutely, I'm not sure about hit the ground running, that one, but they are totally set up. They're, credible systems, foresight, marketing, and they just have so much in play before they've even kind of, set it up. So I think it very elegantly comes back to your comment about mindset and what we agree about. Perhaps a bit of entrepreneurial crazy, the right style of crazy that I like to call it, that, some people are just differently willing to step forward and invest in themselves as business owners, not just as clinicians.
Yeah, I think it's a mindset and self-awareness piece. And some people know they need help before they need it. And others, whether it's a stubbornness or a naivety or somewhere in between.
Or an incident, like,
right. Yeah, and you don't realise that you need help until you're somewhat in too deep. But it's interesting the different experiences that clinic owners go through, and they are somewhat predictable and repeatable. And I think that's where I see the opportunity for clinic owners to not have to make the same mistakes as others. Business is a skill and it is transferable, and you can learn from others' mistakes to really speed up that learning process and learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely. Given that we're sitting here in April, is it April? April 2020, bit of a stab at the date. We are in, a world-changing environment at the moment. What experiences are you seeing out there with allied health business owners in the COVID-19 world?
COVID has been an interesting little spotlight. A mentor of mine has often said that pressure doesn't create cracks, it just reveals them. Right?
And it creates diamonds.
Right, exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll edit that bit out.
And and so it's such a beautiful time to see. I see some clinics in the face of adversity, the months and years of work they've put into culture and values and team and investing in their people. Now, when they're going to have to draw on some of those credits in the emotional bank account, their team are rallying behind them, and there's this uniting of teams that are coming behind one another and really looking to make sure that they all get through this season. And then there's others that are perhaps dismissed some of the personal development and mindset work and thought it was a little bit woo-woo and fuddy-duddy. And all of a sudden, when their back's against the wall and they need that resolve and resilience, they end up in panic mode, and we end up...
And toolbox, just the toolbox.
Right, yeah. Exactly. And those knee-jerk reactions and spur-of-the-moment decisions that may have been solved by investing in themselves or investing in their team. So, look, I certainly don't want to sugarcoat it. It's a tough time for most, if not all, clinic owners. But yet there, amidst it all, there's opportunities to reflect on team building and opportunities to continue to find ways to grow their clinic.
We sort of touched on this the other day when we were talking. What do you see as the kind of standout success factors for April, for right now?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think if I was to put my finger on it, it's those teams that have there's intangibles and tangibles, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The intangible culture and support and trust that's been built. And if you can come out the other end of COVID-19 with a team that's united and stable, I think that's a really, really healthy marker of success. I think clinics that have invested in partnerships with other referrers and other local businesses and partnerships with their clients and built relationships with their clients beyond the consulting room, that will really probably stand as a marker of success in and through this season as well. What about you?
The most noticeable feature I've seen has been leadership. And that just kind of sits on the shoulders of what you were just saying, really, doesn't it? That those that have really invested in their leadership self and can lead themselves first. You can't lead anyone till you can lead yourself, and have that spirit of leadership and respect and cohesion and a great culture. They were perhaps optimally positioned to be able to repurpose absolutely everything that they had. The other factor is the willingness. It doesn't necessarily mean the talent, but the willingness to pull the head out of the financial sand and just get help on getting some eyeballs over all of the financials. Not just financials, I'd probably say numbers, because there's a ton of client numbers. You need to other service-related numbers that you need to know as well. So I would say leadership and willingness to bring in advice around numbers and finances have seen the perhaps my standouts. If I had to pick two favourite children.
You make a good point. I read a book while I was on holidays just before COVID hit. We got back days before.
You're away sunning yourself.
I know.
Coming back to this, we can say shitstorm. This isn't too bad.
We can, yeah. And so the book I was reading was by Pat Lencioni, one of my favourite leadership authors of all time, The Motive. And he says that, there's really two motives to any leader. It's either that leadership is a reward or it's a responsibility. And for those that view leadership as a reward, COVID's a really bad time.
Yeah.
Because there's no
not
reward.
So much reward on this one.
No, you're going to be working double the hours for half the money and, all those sorts of challenges. But if leadership's a responsibility, and I love this, it's prime time for you to rise and lift your team and your community through this challenge. What an opportunity to amplify your impact amongst your team, their families, the communities and patients that we're able to serve and support. It's a responsibility and a privilege to be able to contribute and serve. And those leaders, I think, that have that approach and mindset, we're all facing the same challenges, and yet there are some that will thrive and some that will really be challenged.
Yeah. And we're already seeing, wonderful evidence of thriving already with businesses, almost not missing a beat, and growth. Well, top line growth and bottom line growth as well through March. I think it's also really important, I know these guys may not be listening, but to acknowledge on Public Source the incredible tenacity of our Australian allied health consumers as well. So many of my clients provide services to kids and teens and people with different abilities who perhaps don't always have resources and the ability to be able to shift quickly and elegantly and all of the rest of it. But, in these remarkable times, 60, 70, 80, 90% of clients have converted to telehealth, not in a year, in about 2 weeks. So that's kind of that's a gold medal moment, I think, for the Australian consumer as well.
Absolutely. So let's touch on some of those pivot moments. You mentioned telehealth. Maybe we can unpack that. But what are some of the clever or effective changes that you've seen clinic owners implement rapidly over the last couple of weeks in this chaos?
I guess that shift from bricks and mortar and from, an office to a series of, home offices, and getting their team out safely to home work environments with training and tech and power boards and comfy chairs and, mugs with their names on and, the work shirt and the badge on the top half. I think that is absolutely commendable. I think it's mind-bending, the logistics, but the care and the degree of workplace health and safety that's gone into it is absolutely remarkable. And that's, a very physical feat. Business owners then got the challenge of, okay, so what do we put in the diary and how do we serve our clients and how do we ensure momentum and ongoing progress? And I think there's quite a few business owners that I know that have had a lot of fun getting very creative with the services that they're offering, an absolute joy to see.
Yeah, I love it. I think we've seen a number of clinic owners embrace telehealth, as you've touched on, and been creative with the experience that they've been able to deliver in and through that. But I also think there's a lot of clinics that have adapted their ideal clients just through this season. We deal with, as a majority, musculoskeletal type therapies. And so if your ideal client was a footy player or a netballer, there's not much footy or netball happening, at least for the foreseeable future. And so those clinics have been able to find the opportunities to identify different sociographics of demographics of patients that they can help and continue to contribute to. So that's been really inspiring. And of course, the telehealth principle leads itself to changing that client to no longer needing to be within a 5 kilometre radius of the clinic, but can be quite a broad radius, and we can help people in a whole different way now.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts now with telehealth and that allied health business owners are all now in a national market / global?
Yeah, that's right. Check your insurance provider on that one.
Well, yes, you do, literally. For those that have pulled the car over, check your insurance.
Look, it changes the game. It absolutely changes the game. And so I think more than ever, branding and brand positioning is important. No longer do our patients have to choose of the 3 to 10 providers within a 10 kilometre radius of where they live. Yeah. They get to choose from everywhere. And so in an arguably commoditized service space, allied health, we've all got the same degrees hanging off the walls. How do we as clinics differentiate ourselves from a branding perspective? I think that's a huge factor that clinics now need to consider. And again, it's an opportunity. It could be seen as a perceived threat that now there's so many clinics that can work with my clients. I think it's an opportunity for us to expand our borders and really brand and position ourselves strongly with the way we differentiate our service.
How have you seen that branding done well? I know it's somewhat early days, but it's getting done, hey?
It is. With any service, right? And so this conversation probably extends beyond just telehealth and back to even in-person experiences. the clinics that are able to systemize their client experience in a way that's replicable and duplicable across team members and consistent between patients are able to effectively productize what they do. And so when it comes to telehealth, which, by the way, is language that you and I and us health professionals use, I don't think it means much to the general population.
Completely agree. And I think that was a very vertical learning curve in early March.
Yeah.
What is this telehealth you speak of?
Exactly. And so those clinics that are able to adapt their language to not talk amongst their peers necessarily, but speak to patients, educate them, that's probably the big one. I think there's such a learning curve for our patients and communities to understand how traditional therapy that's been delivered in, face-to-face ad infinitum, how can that be delivered through a computer? So those that have embraced branding and education of their current clients and potential clients have got a head start for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess everyone's kind of, surfing it their own way at the moment. And there's business owners positioning for prosperity and others that are just kind of panicking and others that are kind of prepping and bouncing around a bit in the middle. What do you think the next sort of, I don't know, let's maybe go through to September. We go to June. What do you think the next few months are going to look like for our little neck of the woods?
It's a pretty good question.
Because I've got no clue, so I'm all ears. Talk away. You can have the next 45 minutes.
I'm very reticent to pull out the crystal ball. Maybe we've got some...
Will I get my magic wand? Have you seen? I've got a magic wand.
I can see your cape from here, but there's the wand.
Got my wand. I don't know. I used to have a crystal ball. I don't know where it's gone.
Right. Oftentimes, as I'm speaking to clinic owners, it doesn't matter really what I think or you think or they think, but that we're prepared for those scenarios that come. But let's go there. I'm happy to pull it out and have a gaze into the future. I'm interested in what you think, certainly around telehealth. Is this a sustainable thing for clinics, or is it just a land grab or a cash grab? What do you think?
Oh, let me talk about that one. I was interviewed for a summit last night or something. I've lost track of the days, but yeah, I was interviewed for a summit last night, a global summit last night, and the telehealth thing came up, and I did get a little bit on my soapbox, I must admit. It happens from time to time, like it happens a lot, that telehealth isn't new.
Right.
It's been around for ages. And I think it's really important to remember that telehealth is more than jumping on Zoom or CoView or all of those platforms that we love. It's more than just kind of looking down the little white light. Telehealth has a much bigger portfolio in there as well. And many, many, many clinicians all over the world have been using this as a modality for decades,
right,
for a long time. So I suspect it's been on many, many business owners' plans for a good couple of years now, and they've probably done in 3 weeks what they thought they might get to in 2 or 3 years' time. So it's had a really rapid acceleration. So what's really heartening is there's been some really cool research and really good evidence, some amazing evidence, research done here in Australia and one of the Sydney universities. I always get them a little muddled. And so it has an evidence base, and it now has an emerging accelerated evidence base as well. So my soapbox and short answer to your question, it is totally here to stay, and it will be an adjunct to. It may be the sole source of therapy, as it has been for so many people living in rural and remote communities. It has been the only form of allied health support for many. But nowadays, from what I'm hearing and what I'm anticipating, it will be on the menu, if you like. It will be part of the service. It will be part of the program as mutually agreed by, you know, the providers and clients. So I reckon it's just had this sort of, you know, fast track growth hormone, and it will really, really mature from here on in.
If I'm hearing you correctly, though, what you're saying is we as clinic owners need to be thinking about not just telehealth to get us through COVID-19, but we need to approach it as if it is a long-term solution. Whether or not it stays on the menu, different story, but it's an approach, it's a mindset. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's certainly a mindset, but it's an evidence-based way of delivering services, and it will be different, applicable to different disciplines of allied health, if you like. There might be easier adaptation for some disciplines than for others, but yeah, I'm hearing a ton of excitement. I'm hearing a lot of, we should have done this years ago. Oh my gosh, we can't wait till we come out of hibernation to be able to bring this to fruition. It is just so much better than we anticipated. So, yeah, it's really, really interesting to see the role it does play in the allied health service menu, for want of a better word.
What else do you see over the next 6 months?
I see a lot of fatigue. I'm seeing fatigue now.
What sort of fatigue?
I sort of did a Facebook Live about this, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that the incredible kind of flood of adrenaline and cortisol to be able to get businesses completely repositioned to be able to serve in a, less of a face-to-face kind of world and more of a screen-to-screen world, and get people home and safe and set up and trained. I have a bit of a sense that a lot of business owners were coming off that cortisol curve and were, just holding their hearts a little more heavily, and we're sort of thinking, well, we've got that bit done, and that's the practical bit, and that's that stuff we had to do. What do we do next? And those astute business owners that I sort of profiled before are absolutely all over their numbers, inside out, upside down. I don't think I've ever looked at as many cash flow forecasts in the last 3 weeks as I have previous. So I think now, we don't know, well, the schools are, kids aren't really at school. Is that for a month? Is that for a whole term? What are the next school holidays going to look like? Do you think we might be kind of back opening, finding the key to the office in August or June? And so there is sort of this uncertainty bit now that some business owners are somewhat resting and repositioning in, and others are actually a little panicked by the lack of structure. And there's others, I guess, that are just thinking, oh my God, I've got a blank whiteboard, I've got a pack of coloured pens, I'm totally good to go with this. And, you and I are both very attuned to the questions that we are asked by our clients and the questions that we're not. And I am well aware of many a business owner that is totally on the hustle for what the post-hibernation phase will look like. They just can't wait. Yeah,
it is interesting, isn't it? And I think it's a moot point to a degree of whether the world opens up in June or August or October or December, but it's those who are preparing for all the different scenarios and ready to make the most of it when the clouds do part and the sun finally shines.
Well, you're in an interesting position as one of the founding CEOs of Clinic Mastery, but you're also still a clinic owner, aren't you?
I am. I have been there today, actually. Today's my day, so yes.
So what can you kind of share with us about how you're reorienting your own clinic?
So a lot of things we've touched on. So we've been dabbling in telehealth for a number of years. Myself, I've been doing telehealth consults for over 5 years now, but it now becomes a lot more of the mix of what we're delivering. So getting the team on board with a consistent branded experience has been really important for us. We've shifted our ideal clients through to mid-2020 ideal clients and being able to really get granular on, we want to help delivery drivers, right? Or we want to help the 55 to 65-year-olds who have had their joint surgeries postponed. How can we help them? So for listeners who aren't familiar,
solving problems
is our discipline. But communication and leadership has been, I know we keep coming back to it, Cathy, but I wanted to make sure that my team and my clinic felt safe and secure, both from a health perspective, that there was zero or very minimal risk in and around coronavirus, but also very cognizant of the fact that they have mortgages and they have families to feed and their careers and identities are tied up in what they do. And so I'm super passionate about creating win-wins for my team, making sure that any JobKeeper arrangements effectively put to use so that people can continue to have a job beyond the stimulus. But we've found, Cathy, that we've been able to really double down on our relationships, partnerships and connections with health professional referrers, with other business referrers and community connections. That's been a big play for us.
Yeah. Wow. You've just got sort of like two heads in the game here. Gosh, I know how much energy, I'm investing in my clients and my business. I honestly can't imagine what it would be like to still have a practice now as well.
It's interesting. I've got such a good team, and they look after most of the day-to-day stuff. I've been able to replace myself there, but for mine, it's actually a great little. And I say this with respect to my team and clinic. It's my little guinea pig, and we test out a lot of our theories and strategies on my team first. And if it works, we'll be able to help others, and if it doesn't, we'll have a bit of a giggle behind closed doors.
Yeah, I won't tell them. They're probably not listening. That'll be all right.
No, they know they're my favourites. I was going to say, what changes after COVID? What changes and what stays the same? What do you think we'll never go back to, and how will allied health be different because of all this?
I've been playing with this expression for about a fortnight. You know the expression business as usual? Mm-hmm. I've been playing with business as new usual. Right. So I kind of get a little alarmed when I hear about when it will be back to normal. And one of my team members said it this morning, and I said, whoa, we're not going back to normal. Right. We are far from normal at the best of times, but what we have now is just such an interesting opportunity to create a new normal. Right. And I guess you can kind of sit and keep reacting, or you can kind of wrangle your thinking and get that support to actually create a new future as much as possible. So I guess, I don't want to be too sort of blinded by, the fast adjustments we're making in-house at Nacre Consulting in response to this. But what I'm kind of witnessing is a lot more automation. And I think that wire's been tripped by customer service team working remotely. And, who takes the FPOS machine home and things, just logistical things like that. And will it work at my house? And, all of this sort of stuff that there's been how can we, in true entrepreneurial spirit, how can we do more with less? Right. How can we lighten the human touch on our systems? We've just had this default clickety-click, copy-paste, photocopy, shred kind of approach, whatever it is. No. So I'm anticipating that the new usual will have a bit more automation, a bit more leverage of tech, and that's going to sort of need a little bit of housekeeping perhaps in the customer service kind of team as well. So that's one thing I'm hoping will kind of shape up a bit as well.
I like it. Yeah. On a different angle, I'm interested to see clinic owners continue to be a voice in their community. And I know there's so many progressive owners that have really stood up and communicated really well. And in times of crisis, leaders who communicate really do stand out. And I think, as sad as it might be, there's going to be a bit of a shift in community. There'll be people that are doing it really economically tough, jobs that are lost, and schooling that's been disrupted, and so perhaps the minds. I mean, we've been in economic growth and a bull market for 10 years now. This is a real correction.
This is the clip we've been waiting for.
Yeah, which is heartbreaking in the thick of it. But I think society will be different out the other end, and those clinics that will embrace their opportunity to have a much bigger impact than just simply service provision. I think those that really go, how can we not just survive but amplify our impact and sustain that? There's a real correction, I think, in terms of clinics that will be around to do that.
I think sitting against what you just so beautifully described is a ton dosage of courage, and that business owners will be just in time in awe of what they've achieved and the time frame with which they've done it, right, and the foundation that they've launched and leapt from. And I'm wondering if that courage is going to show up with a little bit back. Well, we're not in a neighbourhood market anymore. We're in a national market. Oh, goodness me, we're in a global market. How can we be serving perhaps with more brilliance? How can we be serving our niche globally? What else can we be delivering digitally online that is ethical and effective and solves people's problems, but is also just still so beautifully aligned with the way we do things at insert awesome business name. So I'm really wondering if kind of people's eyes are a little open because this is such a global phenomenon. I've read more about, Iran and the USA and Italy and Spain and all my favorite countries than I have for a long time. So in my work and in my line of work and in just my general intelligence in terms of what I'm consuming, I've just kind of got a wider lens on than usual as well. And I wonder if that doesn't kind of trickle in on the back of the incredibly leveraged work business owners have done as well.
I love that piece you've mentioned there around courage. And if we were to get practical and think about some advice for clinic owners here and now, I know that we went through a season where clinic owners when we dropped off the COVID cliff, the 12-month plan got absolutely scrapped, and we had to work out how to do telehealth and all those types of things. Perhaps now that courage that we've learnt over the last few weeks gets to be rolled into their new 12-month plan, and perhaps you can dream a bit bigger, think a bit bigger, think crazier, and embrace the opportunity to stretch themselves more. So my challenge to clinic owners is pull back out the 12-month plan, continue to dream bigger, and think about how you can amplify your impact. What would you say, Cathy, to clinic owners, some practical things they could do?
I would get that. My 12-month plan literally fell off the wall on the weekend and I had to crawl around my office to get it. And then I put it back up on the wall and I thought, I said rude words. I said, crumbs, that one's done. That one's done. Oh no, I'm not going to insert gorgeous overseas country. Oh, I'm not going there either. I was going to go to the B1G1 conference in Vietnam. I don't know that that's going to be on. And I thought, wow. And so I had this moment where I could actually see that we had fast-tracked a ton of stuff.
Right.
And that we're all business planners. We all do that work with our mentors, and some activities just seem to take forever and others just kind of get flipped in a week or two. So time seems to have a different calibration at the moment. People don't even quite know what day it is because they've just lost their physical landmarks, their temporal landmarks. They've even lost their day and night landmarks a little as well. So on that 12-month plan, I would actually love to set the challenge. See if you can get that 12-month plan done by June. And then just start afresh and look at that next financial year on and 10x it. Just what do you got to lose? Your time is different now and your priorities are different now. And I suspect a few bits will fall off people's business plans because of the context, and just bring in all that other stuff and fast track it and then just run amok with your imagination about what's on the 21 plan.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And, it reminds me of, I think about, so it's a different approach to the same problem. I think there's some clinic owners, rightly or wrongly, are thinking, how could I shrink my business by 30% so I qualify for jobs?
Oh, don't start me on that. Are we going to go to politics now? Let's go to politics.
Maybe. But a mentor of mine said, well, hang on, if people are talking like that, let's flip it and go, rather than how can we shrink by 30%, how can we grow by 3x or by 30x? How do we double? So clinic owner, how can you not just shrink, but how can you double?
The thought of playing the game to manage down your business to get the stimulus package.
Tell us what you really think, Cathy.
No, that's it. I've said you're the one that just before the podcast was listening to our Prime Minister's latest live. You're way ahead of me.
Yeah.
What do you think? Well, I'm really aware that I don't speak to every allied health business owner in the country. I look through a certain window, and certain types of business owners will be in my calendar for a variety of reasons. They may not even know in that first phone call. So I would love to be able to just have a whole weekend somewhere with thousands of business owners and really collect story, because I'm really mindful of interpretation on the slither of industry that I'm connected with as well. But I do get I don't know, my entrepreneurial heart breaks a little bit when I'm sort of hearing, oh, we're not eligible for the package, or if we do this and this, we might be. I'm going, yeah, no, just it's okay to be profitable. It's so interesting and inspiring and invigorating to be profitable. It just gives you choice to be able to invest that elsewhere around the world.
And that's exactly it. It's those clinic owners that have been able to have that margin over the past couple of months have positioned themselves, like you say, whether they've come off the tools and maybe no longer consulting or invested time in systems or team, and they've been able to do that by choice. It really is a choice thing. I know those clinic owners that are struggling to keep their head above water feel like they're
and the
trapped.
package is wonderful for that, but not to play the game to get it.
Yeah, that's right. It's a zero-sum game if you plan to get it. Again, it's a perspective thing, isn't it? If you are in the case where you need that, and I guess I don't want to be dismissive of those who are really battling and maybe even shut completely. If you are eligible to get it, you're absolutely entitled to it. But how do you view that perspective of this is an opportunity for us? You know, I said to my team even this morning, this is the government helping us to make sure that we can keep working on our jobs so that we keep our jobs for the long term. And it's a perspective. We don't want to get in a situation where team members are sitting at home watching Netflix on their blessed assurance and getting paid for the privilege. This is an opportunity to work. You know what I love, Cathy? I love the business owners that are going, well, I never had time to work on my business or I never had enough money. Well, now the government is potentially paying your team and you've got plenty of time. It's a great opportunity to grow your clinic.
Yeah. And I'm, just so inspired by so many of the conversations I've had in the last couple of weeks where business owners are celebrating the fact that they're ineligible and they are celebrating that now they, in the context of the bigger environment, they have a really vibrant, viable business. And they may not have had a lunch break for a little while, but they're looking back as they do on their figures. They didn't even have to look back on their figures. They knew that that game wasn't for them. And, the chat box lights up with but look what we've achieved, guys. We're X percent up on, we're nowhere near, so on and so forth. So, it's just such a mixed story out there. And I do really feel, and this is where I'd love your opinion, I do really feel for those businesses that are sort of borderline and that are so close to being eligible. If only there was a little grey zone there. What are your thoughts on whether the package is sort of somewhat enough?
It's tricky. And, we began recording this halfway through a ScoMo announcement.
Oh, yeah. Have you got one eye on it? Have you still got... Still got the live on?
No, I wonder if things will have changed by the time this ends. People's earpods.
We should probably wrap this up. We're probably not even current by the time we end the conversation.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I think those that are on the borderline, I really feel for. I really feel, and but I think there will be some grey, and I think there will be some grace for those who projected growth and maybe didn't hit that growth, or they grew but not to the extent they thought. I think there will be grace in and around that. But again, JobKeeper package aside, let's forget about the stimulus for a second. Maybe your business did shrink and maybe it's growing again or at a different rate. Keep your eyes fixed ahead. Keep your eyes fixed on the impact that you want to make and the goal, that painted picture vision that you had as a clinic owner. And whether government helps or not, we're here to help clients, we're here to lead inspired teams, and we're here to make an impact. And I think that's absolutely achievable for every clinic, regardless of any economic challenge.
Yeah. All righty, let's leave it there. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
And
Jack.
Likewise, thank you for having me on Private Practice Made Perfect.
Yeah, all good. All righty, one of us will send a recording somewhere and it'll all be perfect. Look after.
Well, love it. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grow Your Clinic podcast. To find out more about past episodes or how we can help you, head to www.clinicmastery.com/podcast and please remember to rate and review us on your podcast player of choice. See you on the next episode.